Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Dawn Melanie. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of my series titled Managing Self. Some of you may know me as the Pizza Lady. That's because of my eating a whole pizza every Friday diet, even when I was getting ready for competitions, that is bodybuilding competitions. Some of my younger fans, some of the bag boys and girls at local grocery stores, they've actually, and still do, affectionately don me as the Muscle Lady. Some adults, they simply call me Muscle Chick. It's interesting because I have multiple sclerosis over 20 years. And I like the title that my MS friends kind of give me. To them, a lot of them, they call me the MS Warrior Princess. Now, each of these I gracefully accept, but I admit that I gracefully accept each of these because I at any given point in time, I'm going to possess that quality representative of that title. At different times, but all of them are me. I'm each of those titles, kind of like a conglomerate. But one thing's for sure is I know that people that perception is key, and the perception by different audiences will be reflected in their verbiage about me. So anyway, regardless, they're all names, labels, or shall I say titles, and it's funny because I say title. A title is a prefix or a suffix that we add to someone's name in certain contexts. For instance, something to signify, just simply signify either like an official position, or actually, like judge so and so, or attorney so and so. A position of authority or an official position, veneration, shall we say, or titles are often used in professional or academic qualifications. For instance, I've earned the title CPA, Certified Public Accountant, CIA, Certified Internal Auditor. I also received my MBA, Specialization in MIS. I'm also a Certified Fitness Trainer, CFT. But it's funny because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm also a Miss or MS. I have multiple sclerosis. So if we do have the pleasure to actually meet one-to-one, that is you and I, perhaps on a phone call, perhaps maybe even over the World Wide Web, also known as the Internet. I hope that you'll soon see or determine that my handle, whatever it may be to you, a lot of times I just go by DM, or short for Dawn Melanie, whatever. It's not. I hope if we ever meet or you get to know me a little better or in depth of some sort, you'll see that DM, Dawn Melanie, I'm more than just a digital mind, not just a digital persona. Now, as I sat down to prepare this show's episode, I was thinking, okay, what can I talk about, of course? And during this week's episode of Managing Self, I'll be discussing managing something, oftentimes a conundrum to me, but a conundrum regardless of my MS. I have no control over its existence. I have no control over its existence and all that it entails. But I do have control of how much and of what content I allow to affect me. And this is directly correlated to my intentions, my desires, my wants. Now, again, I said I'm not a digital mind or digital persona. And that's what I'm referring to when I say I have control over how this affects me, what I'll be talking about today. That is the whole digital multimedia, internet, sensational stuff that we are bombarded with today. Oftentimes a serious influx of information. I mean, I bet if I had 100 emails any given day, if I had 100 emails and I could miraculously display them all on my one screen, I'd immediately jump to the food-related ones. And I'd probably bookmark each one of those, a deal, not just a lame reminder about how great XYZ restaurant is. But I quickly go through them, quickly peruse them, and shall I say, glance. I spot the food correspondence, and I put a star on them. Reminding me to go back and pay particular, more in depth attention to that particular item. I kind of what made me talk about this specifically is because this is my birthday month. My 46th birthday was 3 days ago, and it's funny, but today I'll be cashing in on 3 free offers that I have still outstanding. Free French pastry, free boba tea, and a free milkshake. I know. You guys some of you out there may be saying, wait a minute. This is the woman who says food consumption or food is a major key or factor in her continued success in her managing her multiple sclerosis. No, I'm not out of control. I'm very conscious and aware of what I'm doing and why. Yes, I'm being a little self-indulgent, but I'm aware of the consequences. So this is only for a very, very short time that I'm living like this. In fact, I've already stopped, I'd say the shenanigans, probably 2 days. Yeah, 2 days ago, I've stopped those shenanigans. A lot of you know me. I oftentimes stress the importance of eating health-promoting foods. And, me, myself personally, I do use this practice, consuming health-promoting foods. And I consider it being a major factor, a major key in my maintenance and continuation of my health, battling relapse and remitting multiple sclerosis for over the past 20 years and counting. Most of the times, I do avoid foods that are proven to increase an incidence of bodily inflammation. And I encourage you guys all to do as well. And that's whether you have MS or not. And today, how does that relate to me managing myself or managing my multiple sclerosis? Easy answer. Easy question, easy answer. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a neurodegenerative and inflammatory immune condition that causes problems throughout the body. It's caused by a breakdown of a protective cover, also known as the myelin sheath. Because I know that, I'm on a disease-modifying therapy, and I have been ever since I was diagnosed. So what do I eat? Knowing this information, that inflammatory foods could perhaps lead to the progression of any damage of my myelin sheath, cover over my nerves. Some people often say, well, what do you eat? What I do eat, I eat in hopes of avoiding an MS flare-up, also known as an exacerbation. I tend towards consumption of an anti-inflammatory diet, which basically consists of foods, I don't want to say healthy foods, but foods that we probably know we should be eating more of anyway. These include salads. My husband, he's probably like, oh, here we go with the salads again. But tomatoes. Tomatoes are anti-inflammatory food product. Olive oil, oftentimes, considered in the Mediterranean diet if you guys want to explore options of what works for you as far as a healthy diet. Leafy green vegetables, spinach, kale, my favorite. Collard greens. Nuts, which I eat a ton of. Fatty fish, like salmon. I love salmon. And also fruits. Your basic strawberries, blueberries, cherries, oranges. I basically tend to purchase whatever's in season because that's usually the cheapest thing and the best looking and all the other good stuff. But that's what I generally eat on a day-to-day basis. I'm consciously aware of, these are foods that I eat in my favor, to maintain my healthy existence living with MS. Now, people, on the flip side, people often ask me, what foods do I try to avoid? And why am I so vigilant about not partaking in them? Well, again, easy question, easy answer. I consider the main culprit to be processed foods. Anything that's in a bag or a box or a quick meal, things like that. I do not want to eat that stuff. I know it's quick and easy, it's convenient, but stuff that's worth it, we're gonna have to put in some time and effort, like to cook. Some people don't have time to cook, but even if it's just you making a simple salad, that's better than getting, I would say a happy meal, not happy meal, but some sort of fast food meal that'll be like a couple of minutes to the drive-through, which is why I oftentimes meal prep my foods for prep. Yeah, I prep for meal preps. In other words, I cut a lot of lettuce up and I'll cut vegetables up and things like that, put them in a container, put them in the refrigerator. That way, when it's time to eat, all I do is kind of take those items and then assemble my plate of food. So, anyway, packaged processed foods are a no-no. Other foods that I avoid are sugary drinks, and not only like soft drinks, colas and pop, whatever you may call it, but oftentimes sugary drinks are it seems like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Orange juice, a lot of the fruit juices, a lot of extra sugar is added into those juices, quote unquote juices, so which is why I prefer to reach for a natural fruit in its own packaging. An orange is packaged in its own skin, own packaging. A banana, things like that, instead of having a processed juice product. Let's say, I don't like that sort of thing. Also, other items I avoid are white bread and white pasta. Trying to eat too much of those. I'll eat some, but not much. Vegetable oil, again, I'll eat some. I just don't go crazy with it. You may ask, why am I so darn adamant about this? What she eat? Well, I'm very particular about any food, foreign substances that enter my body, my temple. We often hear less is more, but how many of us really believe that? I say this because I know in the recent years, I'm seeing more and more of people using technology as propaganda for our minds, but not using it for, I'd say, a more productive purpose, like the promotion of the well-being of ourselves. Oftentimes we spend a lot of time in front of the screen, our computer screens, our phone screens, our iPads, our Chromebooks, our television sets, and it's detrimental. Hell, I see it personally as degenerative to our minds as is multiple sclerosis, which is a disease characterized by progressive, often irreversible deterioration and loss of function in the organs and tissues. That's pretty messed up. Watching much TV, being on the internet a lot, it's just as bad as for our minds as multiple sclerosis can be. When we do this, I've noticed that people who have a habit of doing these things oftentimes sacrifice long-term health, and why is that? I think it's because of a fear of missing out on something, usually something trivial, and not in line to promote, again, overall well-being, just for some short-term cardinal pleasure. Again, I liken the phenomenon similar to food. In America, we often have this tendency to overeat, stuff our bellies until we have to loosen our buttons to get relief. Why? Because we paid $19.99 to eat all we can, all we want. Now, as we eat, are we still as hungry as when we started? Have we been satiated, or are we just doing it because? I've done some reading on this, and it seems like sustained stress that people experience, it causes us all to fall back on familiar routines. Eat a lot, kind of comfort food, things like that. Internet, activities that we are drawn to on the internet. Some not as healthy as others, but that familiarity that we often are drawn back to is associated with part of our brain that's associated with decision making and also goal-directed behavior. Unfortunately, when we continue this sort of behavior, our brain shrinks. Yeah, shrinks. And the brain region associated with habit forming grows when we are under chronic stress. So, the more stressed you are, the more likely to just do those basic things that you're used to, failing to develop into something more that you can be. Scientifically, that term for brain shrinkage is called atrophy, and I know that's the first thing I look at when I get my MRI reports. I know they're trying to count the lesions, the number of lesions in the ER, enhanced, denoting MS activity. But I personally get the MRI. When I look at the MRI reports or the verbiage from the technician, I look and see if there's any brain atrophy, because that's important to me. Shrinkage of my brain. And when I see the words unremarkable regarding my brain atrophy or the existence, it's the only time that I don't mind having the adjective unremarkable related to myself. That is, as it relates to my brain atrophy or non-existence of any. Unremarkable. That's fine with me. Challenge for everybody listening out there. I want you all to do a better job. This includes myself. I want us all to do a better job initiating ourselves re-imaging of our core life's intentions. Remove all or most of our software. Remember how you looked at your last new smartphone that you received, or maybe how you looked at it after you performed the reset, after it started getting slow. That sounds sort of like almost like a plasma exchange or something of that nature, but what I'm suggesting is a more intense change than a simple reboot. Not just a Control-Alt-Delete, but a really hardcore change. Or maybe as simple as powering off your mobile phone to allow it to restart. This self-re-imaging that I'm proposing includes not only removing out-of-date software, but reinstalling everything, preferably with newer versions, if any at all are available out there. Your personal home computing experience, whether you use Windows, Apple, IBM or Windows Suite, Linux, who cares? Let's all re-image ourselves. And just to get it straight, re-image is the process of removing all software on a computer and reinstalling everything. It's necessary for our operating systems that may have become damaged or corrupted. You may also need to re-image if your system is plagued with spyware problems. The word reinstall in and of itself is often used in place of re-image. I apologize if I come off as trying to be somewhat techie, because by no means am I trying to be that. I just am pointing out that I've noticed the immense influence that computers and technology have had on my life in the past, and others around me. I can see the impact, and I know that whether I'm managing myself, managing my MS, managing anything, managing my life, I need to be aware of and practice conscious computing. I believe Stephen Covey said it: ability to respond, to make a choice, to take responsibility for our actions. As a proactive person, we make decisions that guide us based on our core principles. This means that I'm understanding more and more that we have to prioritize things that are important to us. Sometimes when we confuse or inappropriately exchange urgent tasks over important ones, sometimes we're actually choosing other people's priorities over our own. And sometimes, I've been guilty, sometimes it's easier to do the urgent things than the ones that are actually important. Me personally, I know that, I can't do everything. I can do a lot of things, but I can't do everything at all times. So I'm learning myself that there's been times where I've been expected to be on call for everyone, whether it be a boss, or that is when I worked, parents, spouse, some friends, but that's not reasonable. So again, I need to at all times have conscious computing of my days and my tasks, of what I'm trying to accomplish. Prioritize me, and also make the distinction between urgent and important. Things that are important are just that, they're important. Urgent things may not be that important, or not as important as we may think. Like Stephen Covey, in life I start with the end in mind. I try not to get discouraged, because there's going to be tough days, tough times, challenges to overcome. I work through these things because, just like my muscles, I don't want them to atrophy. My brain, I don't want it to atrophy. My character, I don't want it to atrophy. I know that, I know myself, I'm very goal-oriented, but actually I've noticed that the process is actually the goal. That's key. The process, what I go through. I think that's key because it builds my character. It makes me a better person, a better version of me. I hope I never use any advancements of technology or anything else as a crutch, or as a acceptance to the not as quick progression of my goals, or achievement of my goals that I want to. I don't want to use that as a crutch. I hope I never lose focus or perspective. See, I look at it as, okay, our technological tools are just those, our tools. And if we lose perspective, we'll actually become slaves to them. Someone said, we become what we behold. We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us. It's like, why is this? Why? Because, well, we let them take the lead. We say, well, the internet made me do it, or it was there and I couldn't control myself, or I didn't have any, willpower. No. We have a choice. And don't become a victim or a slave or an alleged slave or victim to any technological advancements or anything of the nature. I say this because I noticed that, that's really taking the path of least resistance, or, as I say, the easy way. And usually that's a trap. Remember how I mentioned, if I could look at all 100 of my emails on one page and kind of figure out what to keep and what to discard? That kind of leads me to my last point of the day. And that is, do you really think what you're doing is going to make you happy? Is it making you happy? Is it promoting your health or well-being? Is it for your good, for the benefit of society overall? Or is it something for a selfish reason or immature, quote-unquote, reason? I ask this because I know that, when I was younger, when I was immature, sometimes I felt like I was missing out on something, I'll often joke with my husband and tell him how I felt like I couldn't do things because I knew it was only because I was little. I was the youngest in my family, a family of 4 siblings, 3 other siblings, myself, and I was the young one. So I was like, you know what? I can't do it because I'm young. That's it. I knew that had to be it. That was my answer to everything. Everything that I couldn't get, I attributed to the fact that I was young or I was little. Yeah, that's it. I felt like I was missing out on something. Today, I know people can fall subject to that misunderstanding, thinking that they're missing out on something, and proceed to do things that aren't in their best interest. Basically, wanting more. Not understanding less is more, but just wanting more. And whether it be for, whatever reason it's for. It's real in some instances. Myself today, I know and understand that I appreciate my presence. When I say presence, I don't mean my presence as in presence as a gift, things like that. But I guess I do, because I think my presence, Presence, my living and enjoying the moment, my presence, me being honest and accepting what is and what is not, that's a present to me. My life is a present, and I appreciate that now more so than ever before. I ask that we all be conscious, mindful in all our decisions that we make. There are our decisions. We have the ability to make them. One thing to also consider, as the week goes on, is, we talk about MS, our brain. MS affects our brain, which affects a lot of our nervous system, and our brain controls a lot of our bodies. It's a powerhouse, indeed. But the brain and the mind, they're not synonymous. I used to think they were, but they're not. The intelligence of our mind, it does permeate every cell of our body, not just our brain cells. Controls our vision, our speaking ability, our walking, our hearing. It controls a lot, but it's not the same. Our mind does have tremendous power over our bodily systems, but our mind is something that we control. Our brain, part of that visible, tangible world of the body, our powerhouse control center. Our mind is part of the invisible, transcendent world of thought, of feeling, of attitude, belief, and imagination. Again, the brain it's that physical organ, and it's most associated with mind and consequences, but the mind is not confined to the brain. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. And not to be blasphemous, but gosh darn it, I am, and I ask that each of you listening to join me. Be a most gracious receiver of the most awesome gift that we can have, and that's life. I ask that we all be conscious, mindful in all our decisions that we make. There are our decisions. We have the ability to make them. One thing to also consider, as the week goes on, is we talk about MS, our brain. MS affects our brain, which affects a lot of our nervous system, and our brain controls a lot of our bodies. It's a powerhouse, indeed. But the brain and the mind, they're not synonymous. I used to think they were, but they're not. The intelligence of our mind, it does permeate every cell of our body, not just our brain cells. Controls our vision, our speaking ability, our walking, our hearing. It controls a lot, but it's not the same. Our mind does have tremendous power over our bodily systems, but our mind is something that we control. Our brain, part of that visible, tangible world of the body, our powerhouse control center. Our mind is part of the invisible, transcendent world of thought, of feeling, of attitude, belief, and imagination. Again, the brain it's that physical organ, and it's most associated with mind and consequences, but the mind is not confined to the brain. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. And not to be blasphemous, but gosh darn it, I am, and I ask that each of you listening to join me. Be a most gracious receiver of the most awesome gift that we can have, and that's life. I'm not waiting for New Year's for a total system crash to perform a mental reboot. It's 30 days before Christmas Day, but I'm starting right now. I give myself a priceless gift of healthy living. One of my favorite quotes is by Voltaire. He said, "God gave us the gift of life. It is up to us to give ourselves the gift of living well." Now, just if any of you out there are feeling behind the 8 ball, because you've been diagnosed with MS, maybe you're having some serious complications in the recent past, or maybe currently right now. I know I've gone through the feeling of my autonomy being stripped away from me. Some basic freedoms I thought just robbed, taken away from me. But I encourage you all out there to not live in despair. Don't exist with this feeling of a complete loss or a significant absence of hope. Own it. Own your situation. Make the best of it. I would say make the best lemonade you can, given the lemons that you picked out of the garden. Each player must accept the cards life deals him or her. But once they are in hand, he or she alone must decide how to play the cards in order to win the game. That quote is also by Voltaire. This is Dawn Melanie, and again, I thank you for joining me this week for Managing Self, and I do hope that you join me next week. In the meantime, I hope that you all have a blessed week. Thank you.
One last note. I do apologize because I realized that I spelled present incorrectly. The presence I speak of is being present in the moment. Present spelled Presence. Not to be confused with the presents or gifts, tangible items that sometimes we often only associate with Christmas time. I thank you for listening, and again, I hope you'll join me next week.